Pull out a photograph from 1974, a church picnic, a family reunion, a crowd at a ball game. Look at the bodies. Something's different, and it isn't your imagination. Almost nobody in that picture is heavy, and not one of them is trying. Today, I'm giving you 25 reasons why, and stay with me, because number 19 is the one America got badly wrong. My name is Dale, and this is Wonders, the corner where we keep the America we miss. Well, let's start with a dinner plate. Go into an antique store, find a dinner plate from the 1950s or 60s, and hold it up next to the one in your cabinet right now. The old one is about 10 inches across. Yours is probably 12, and some of them run 13. That sounds like nothing. It is not nothing. Go from a 10-inch plate to a 12-inch plate, and you haven't added 2 inches. You've added almost half again as much surface area, because area grows with the square. A plate that looks properly filled at 12 inches is holding a great deal more food than a plate that looked properly filled at 10. And here's the part that matters, the part that's been tested over and over in laboratories since. People don't serve themselves a measured amount of food. They serve themselves until the plate looks right. Your eye decides, not your stomach. So when the plate quietly got bigger, the serving got bigger, and not one person in America made a decision about it. My grandmother's everyday plates were the plain white ones with a thin green band, and when my mother finally inherited them in the 80s, she said they looked like saucers. She wasn't wrong. They looked like saucers next to what we'd all started eating off of. Nobody in 1974 was practicing portion control. The portion was controlled for them by the china, and that idea that the container makes the decision and the person just goes along with it is going to come up again and again on this list, starting with the very next one. Now, before we move on, I want to tell you where a lot of this comes from. I put together a book called 77 Forgotten Recipes No One Makes Anymore, the dishes that died with our grandparents' generation. 77 old-fashioned recipes that used to show up on kitchen tables all across America and somehow disappeared over the years. It is the food our mothers and our grandmothers used to make, written down plain, step by step. So these recipes do not disappear for good. The old desserts and the homemade snacks, the breakfasts and the Sunday dinners, the soups and the sandwiches, the ground beef recipes, the country and Appalachian dishes, and the forgotten meals from the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, and even the Great Depression. Every recipe comes with clear instructions, pictures, and a little of the story and the memories behind it. This is the food that used to fit on that 10-inch plate, and it is all in there. Now go ahead and grab your phone and open up your camera, the same one you use to take pictures. Point it at that square code on your screen and hold it steady for a second. A little link will pop up. Give it a tap, and it will take you straight to the book. And if you are watching on your phone right now, the link is waiting for you right down below in the description. Take your time. There is no rush at all. I'll wait right here. All right, where were we? Staying with that idea that the container makes the decision and you just go along with it. Here's the one nobody ever thinks about. The 6.5-ounce Coke bottle. That little green glass bottle held 6.5 ounces, not 12, not 20, not the 64-ounce bucket you can buy at a gas station today. 6.5 ounces, roughly 80 calories, and you drank it and you were finished, Berto, because there was no more in the bottle. The bottle ended the transaction for you. Nobody had to decide when to stop because the stopping was built into the glass. 6.5 ounces. That's not a soft drink. That's a sample. And then you took the bottle back to the store because it was worth 2 cents, and 2 cents was 2 cents. Now the next one is about what wasn't in the house at all, the snack drawer that did not exist. Open a kitchen cabinet in 1974 and look for the snacks. You will have trouble. There was flour, there was sugar, there was a bag of potatoes, there was coffee, there might be a box of crackers, and a bag of chips bought for a specific occasion. What there wasn't was a standing supply of individually wrapped things engineered to be eaten between meals. And the numbers on this are stark. In 1977, the average American adult ate one snack a day, and about 4 in 10 adults ate no snack at all on a given day. By 2008, the average was more than 2 snacks a day, and 90% of adults were snacking. That is not a change in willpower. That's a change in what's within arm's reach. And nothing in that 1974 cabinet was designed to be eaten standing up out of the package without a plate. The food required a small amount of effort, and a small amount of effort is enough to stop most of us most of the time. But that only worked because of something else that had to be true first. Walking was not exercise. It was just how you got somewhere. Kids walked to school, and not a special healthy walk, the only walk available. You walked to the corner store. You walked to church. You walked to the neighbors. Most families had one car, and it was at work with somebody. So if you needed to be somewhere between 8 in the morning and 6 at night, your legs were the transportation. Nobody counted those steps because nobody thought of them as steps. They were just the distance between two places. Cross the only way there was to cross it. Now, the next one has a number attached to it, and it's the most staggering figure in this entire video. A large order of French fries. Here's the single most staggering number in this entire video. In 1955, McDonald's sold one size of French fries, 2 ounces, about 200 calories, and that was that. By the 70s, you could get a larger one, around 3 ounces and 300 calories, and it was labeled large. Today, what's called large runs closer to 500, and when the supersize existed, it hit 610. So the fries that a 70s teenager thought of as a big order are roughly what a small is now. It wasn't just the fries. Researchers at the University of North Carolina went through national food surveys and found that between 1977 and 1996, hamburgers grew by almost 100 calories, salty snacks by 93, soft drinks by 49. And the original McDonald's meal, a hamburger, fries, and a 12-ounce Coke, came to about 590 calories all in. The supersized value meal that replaced it came to 1,550. Same restaurant, same idea of lunch, nearly 3 times the food. And here's the part that gets me. Nobody ordered differently. A man in 1976 and a man in 2006 both walk in and ask for a burger, fries, and a Coke in the same words. And one of them walks out with almost 1,000 more calories than the other. He didn't choose it. It was chosen for him quietly, one size increase at a time, across 30 years, each one too small to notice on its own, which is exactly how the next one worked too. Dessert was a Sunday thing. There was cake in that house, but there was cake on a birthday, on a holiday, or after Sunday dinner. The idea of finishing every single evening meal with something sweet would have struck my mother as strange and probably a little wasteful. Sweet was an event, and an event has to be rare, or it stops being one. Ask anybody who grew up then what dessert tasted like, and they'll tell you it tasted enormous, and part of that was simply that it hardly ever happened. Speaking of things that only happened at certain hours, one television and no remote. The set lived in the living room, and there was exactly one of them, which meant television was something the family did together in one room for a couple of hours, and then it was over. And every time somebody wanted a different channel, somebody had to stand up, cross the room, and turn the dial. In our house, the remote control was named Ray on account of him being 2 years younger than me, and that's simply how it worked. You laugh, but count it. 20, 30 times an evening. One person getting up off the couch, usually Ray. Then there were only 3 networks, so at 11 o'clock the choices ran out and everyone went to bed. The screen couldn't follow you into the kitchen, into the car, or into your bed at 1 in the morning. And this matters more than it sounds, because eating in front of a screen is the single most reliable way anybody has ever found to eat without noticing. Your attention goes to the picture and your hand keeps working. In 1974, that could happen for 2 hours in one room and then it stopped because the picture stopped, which brings us to the thing that shaped every single meal in that house. Everything was cooked from scratch. And I want to be careful here because this gets romanticized. It wasn't better because it was pure or natural or any of that. It was better because it was slow. Think about what it took to put a chicken on the table on a Wednesday in 1974. Somebody had to plan it in the morning. Somebody had to have bought it. It had to come out of the refrigerator, get seasoned, go in the oven, and sit there for an hour and a half while the potatoes were peeled and the beans were snapped. From the decision to eat to the moment of eating, you were looking at 2 hours minimum. 2 hours is a break. In 2 hours, a craving passes. In 2 hours, you're not eating on impulse because impulse can't survive the wait. Compare that to now, where the distance between wanting food and having food can be 4 minutes. Nobody's discipline changed. The delay got deleted, and that delay was doing more work than any diet ever has. My mother started dinner at 4 in the afternoon every single day, and I don't think it once occurred to her that she was doing something healthy. She was just doing the only thing that got food on a table by 6. And she would have laughed at anybody who called it healthy. Now, the next one was the exception to all of that, and it happened about 4 times a year. Restaurants were for birthdays. Going out to eat was an occasion announced in advance, and you dressed for it. In 1970, Americans spent about a quarter of their food money away from home. Today, it's more than half, and restaurant food is engineered to be delicious, which is a polite way of saying it carries more fat, salt, and sugar than anything a home kitchen produces. A cook at home is trying to feed you, a restaurant is trying to make sure you come back, and those aren't the same goal. When that shifted from an occasional thing to more than half of the food budget, the American diet changed without a single person changing their mind about anything. And here's another ceiling that quietly came down. The refrigerator was small. Stand next to a 1972 refrigerator, and it comes up short and narrow with a freezer compartment barely big enough for 2 ice trays and a box of peas. Metal ice trays with the lever you had to haul on with both hands, and about a third of the cubes went skidding across the linoleum every time. We've got machines that make the ice for us now. I'd like to report that this freed up my afternoons, but somehow it hasn't. That was a hard ceiling on how much food could live in the house. At one time, you bought for the week and you ate what you bought. There was no chest freezer in the garage holding a month of backup dinners because there was no chest freezer in the garage. And a small refrigerator forces a particular rhythm. You shop, the house fills, the house empties, you shop again, and there are days near the end of that cycle when the pickings are thin and dinner is whatever is left. Every household in America used to run out of food a little bit on purpose every week. Almost nobody does now. Which brings us to the work nobody counted: the wringer, washer, and the clothesline. Housework in 1974 was physical labor, and nobody called it a workout. Wet laundry is heavy. My mother hauled a full basket of it out the back door, hung every piece on the line with her arms above her head, took it all down that evening, and did it again 2 days later. Floors were scrubbed on hands and knees because the tools to do otherwise didn't really exist yet. Rugs got dragged outside and beaten. Windows were washed by hand, both sides. Add up a week of that, and you're looking at hours of steady, low-level physical work that's since been quietly handed to machines. Not 1 minute of it appeared on any chart or any log. And notice what happened when the machines came. The dryer, the dishwasher, the vacuum that actually worked. Every one of them was a genuine improvement. Every one of them gave a woman back hours of her life that she'd every right to have back. And not one of them was a mistake. But the work they removed was work the body had been doing, and nothing was ever put in its place. That's the pattern of this entire video, and it's going to keep repeating, which is exactly what happened outside the house too, but we'll come to that. Leftovers were the plan. You didn't cook extra by accident. A roast on Sunday was Sunday dinner, sandwiches on Monday, and hash or soup by Wednesday, and the amount cooked was calculated against those days. Food cost real money, and throwing it out was close to a sin, especially in a house run by somebody who'd been a child in the Depression. What that meant in practice is that the size of the roast was decided by arithmetic rather than by appetite. Somebody sat down and worked out how much food this family needs between now and Thursday and bought that. Now, the next one is the one that people my age go quiet about until the street lights came on. This is the one that people my age get quiet about. A child in 1974 left the house after breakfast on a Saturday and came back when the light went. Not supervised, not scheduled, not driven anywhere, out on a bike, down at the creek, in somebody's yard, in the street, playing games that were mostly running, hours of it every day for years, and no adult ever described it as physical activity because it was simply what children did with time. There was nothing else to do with time. My brother Ray and I once stayed out so long, my mother sent a neighbor to look for us, and when we got back, the thing she was angry about was that dinner had gone cold, not that we'd been gone since 9 in the morning. And I want to say plainly what that means because it's the thread running through this whole list. Those children weren't disciplined, they weren't virtuous, they were bored, and boredom in 1974 could only be solved by moving your body. Take away the boredom and you take away the movement, and that's precisely what a screen in every pocket did. It didn't make children lazy, it gave them something to do with a Saturday that had never existed before, and the running stopped as a side effect. If these are bringing the memories flooding back, you're exactly who I make these for. Do me one small favor and subscribe so the next trip down memory lane finds you. That's all I ask. Now, back to it. Water came from the tap. You drank it out of a glass or out of the hose in the yard, and you drank it when you were thirsty, straight out of the hose. Hot for the first 4 seconds, tasting of rubber, and not one child I knew ever came to any harm from it. Though I'll admit that was probably luck more than science. Nobody carried a beverage around all day. There was no cup in the car because most cars didn't have a cup holder to put one in. Drinking was a thing you stopped and did, not a thing running quietly in the background of your whole day. And when the thing you drank when you were thirsty was water out of a tap, thirst cost you nothing. Now, the next one takes about 8 seconds to explain, and it might be worth 200 calories a day to some of you. Coffee was black, or it had a splash of milk in it. That was the entire range of options. A cup of black coffee is about 5 calories. The thing being sold under the same name today can carry 400, which makes it a milkshake with a caffeine problem. Same word, same cup in your hand, completely different object. And that brings us to the least glamorous item on this list, which I happen to think is the most important. Food cost real money. Now, this is the unglamorous one, and I happen to think it might be the biggest. In the early 70s, the average American household put well over 13% of its income into food. Today, it's closer to 10, and the food itself, particularly the cheap engineered kind, has gotten dramatically cheaper against wages. When calories are expensive, you buy fewer of them. It's not more complicated than that. Every family I knew had a grocery budget that was a real binding number, and my mother worked it out on the back of an envelope before she went. Running out meant running out, and I want to be careful how I say this next part, because cheap food has fed a lot of people who would otherwise have gone hungry, and that's a genuinely good thing that I'm not going to pretend otherwise about. But the price of a calorie collapsed, and price was doing a job. It was a limit that applied to everybody all the time without anyone having to think about it. And when it loosened, there was nothing standing behind it. And here's a related change that happened right alongside it. The grocery store was small. A supermarket in 1975 stocked somewhere around 9,000 items. A large one today carries 30,000 or more. And almost all of that growth came in the middle aisles, in the packaged and the shelf stable and the engineered. The perimeter of the store, the produce and the meat and the dairy, is roughly the same size it always was. Everything that got added to the middle, and you can't eat what the store doesn't sell. A woman shopping in 1975 wasn't resisting temptation in aisle 7. There was no aisle 7. Now the next one sounds like nothing at all. You got up to answer the telephone. It hung on the kitchen wall on a curly cord. And when it rang, you walked to it. Every call, every time, from wherever you were in the house, at whatever you were doing. And if you didn't get there in time, well, you missed it. Whoever it was would call back, or they wouldn't, and the world kept turning either way. I'm not sure that was worse. And it wasn't just the phone. You got up to change the channel, you got up to open the garage door, you got up to roll down the car window, you got up to find something out, because there was no other way to find it out. 100 small trips a day that have since been eliminated one by one, each of them so trivial that removing it felt like nothing. And that's the whole trouble with this list. Every single item on it's too small to matter on its own. The diet pills. Now here's number 19, the one I promised you, and it's the part of this story that never makes it into the nostalgic version, because alongside all of this, America in the 60s and 70s was running one of the most reckless chapters in the history of weight loss, and a lot of people were badly hurt by it. Doctors handed out amphetamines for weight control on an enormous scale in ordinary clinics to ordinary women who'd gone in asking for help with 20 pounds. My Aunt Dot was on something her doctor gave her for the better part of 2 years, and the family talked about it the way you talk about the weather. Nobody thought it was strange. That's how normal it was. Then came the liquid protein craze at the end of the decade, sold as the last diet you'd ever need, and the Food and Drug Administration ended up linking dozens of deaths to it. People died. Actual people following advice they had been given in good faith. So when somebody tells you the 70s had it figured out, they did not. The country was thinner, and at the very same time, it was doing genuinely dangerous things to stay that way. Both of those are true at once, and anybody who only tells you the first half is selling you something. I bring it up because this channel is about looking back fondly, and looking back fondly is only worth anything if you're willing to look at the whole thing, which includes the next one. And that one is worse. And everybody smoked. And look, this is the other half of the honest answer, and it's not a comfortable one. Something like 4 in 10 American adults smoked in the early 70s, and nicotine blunts appetite and nudges metabolism. Part of the thin America in those photographs was thin because it was smoking. And a meaningful share of the people in that photograph didn't live long enough to see their own 70s. I've buried friends over it. So when you look at a crowd shot from 1974 and think everybody looked better back then, hold both things in your head at the same time. Some of what you're looking at is a country that was still moving and still cooking and still walking to places. And some of what you're looking at is a cigarette that is not a secret worth keeping. It's a warning. Now, back to the ordinary stuff and to the thing that changed inside every school in America. No vending machines in schools. There was a cafeteria, there was a lunch line, and there was a bell. Between the bell and the next bell, there was no food available to a child anywhere in that building because there was nothing in the hallway to buy it from, and no child had money on him anyway. Lunch was a period on a schedule, not a decision. The machines arrived in schools later, along with the contracts that paid for them. And once they were in the hallway, the child got to decide all day, every day. Speaking of things that used to be nobody's decision, the push mower and the rake. Yard work was you. A mower you push with your own legs up and down on a Saturday morning in the heat. Leaves gathered with a rake into a pile, into a bag by hand for a couple of hours every weekend through the fall. Snow moved with a shovel. Hedges cut with hand shears. My father had a rule that the yard got done before anything else happened on a Saturday, and I resented every minute of it. What I didn't understand and couldn't have was that a whole generation of American men were getting several hours of hard physical work a week without a gym existing anywhere in the picture. Then the machines arrived one at a time, each one obviously an improvement, and every single one of them took the work out and gave nothing back. And here's the strange part. The generation that stopped doing all that work is the generation that invented the gym membership so that it could pay money to go do work indoors. We took the labor out of the Saturday and then went looking for somewhere to buy it back. Second helpings had to be asked for. The food didn't sit on the table in front of you. It went back to the stove after everyone was served. So getting more meant standing up, walking over, and doing it in front of your whole family. That one small piece of friction ended a lot of second helpings before they started. Nobody was forbidden anything. It was just slightly awkward, and slightly awkward is remarkably effective. Now, the next one arrived in the 70s and quietly went into almost everything. High fructose corn syrup. Barely existed. It arrived in the American food supply in the 70s and then spread through nearly everything on a shelf. And this is one place where the honest answer is that scientists still argue about how much it mattered on its own. What's not in dispute is what came with it, which was cheap sweetness in products that had never been sweet before. Bread, crackers, salad dressing, pasta sauce. Things that had never been sweet in the history of cooking became slightly sweet and then a bit sweeter, and a palate raised on that finds ordinary food bland. Sugar stopped being something you chose and became something that was already there before you arrived, which leaves us one to go, and this is the one that holds every other item on the list together. Dinner was at 6, and everyone was there. So I want to finish with this one because it holds all the others together. Dinner in 1974 happened at a fixed time in one room with everybody at the table, and it lasted as long as it lasted. There was no other option because there was no other food in the house prepared, no restaurant open late that anybody would drive to, and no screen to take a plate in front of. And what that structure did, without anyone designing it, was put a fence around eating. There was a beginning and there was an end. Food happened at the table, and then food stopped happening until tomorrow. That's the actual answer to the question this video is asking. Not one of these 25 things, all of them at once, stacked on top of each other, making it difficult to eat more without anybody having to try. The people in that photograph from 1974 weren't stronger than you. They were not more disciplined than you. They were living inside a set of walls that's since been taken down, one wall at a time, mostly by things that look like improvements. And that's worth knowing because it means the thing you've been blaming yourself for was never really about you at all. And that's what this channel is. The tricks our grandparents swore by, the recipes we loved as kids, and the small good things this country had and quietly let go of. If you want more of that, you've found the right corner of the internet. So go ahead and hit subscribe, and I'll keep bringing them back one at a time. Today's topic came from Marlene, one of my subscribers, in the comments last week. If there's something you'd love me to dig into, tell me below. The one with the most likes becomes the next video, so it might as well be yours.